Alrighty, folks, this is quickly becoming a new favorite topic of mine, and that is buying small businesses and working with Mr. Bo Eckstein to get them financed because I'm intrigued by the creative opportunities. In video one today, we talked about how to find them. In video number two, we're going to talk about how to evaluate them, things to look for. Bo, thank you for being here each week. I appreciate you, and the audience loves you.
Thanks. It's always good to be here, and I love talking about entrepreneurship, business acquisition, and real estate. So it's
Yeah,
perfect.
so it's like a home run for you. It's like your kid in a candy store, right? So let's
Exactly.
talk about it. So let's just pretend somebody had a buy box. It was laundry mats. I'm just picking on it because that's the one I used in the last video, so I'll stick with it. Now you have an operator that says, "Hey, I might be interested in selling." What should somebody do once that happens? What should they look at? Should they call you? Maybe they book a call right away. What should they do due diligence wise? What do they do? They got somebody that wants to sell. What do they do?
Sure. So I think it's building rapport and relationship first. It's not, I think the important thing is that the seller typically is gonna want to like the person they're selling their business to. It's usually their baby.
Ah,
And
interesting.
so we have I just hijacked a series of questions. Actually, we'll make a resource for one rental at a time because I do have a list of 800 business brokers and resources to look for um, businesses for sale. So I think it'd be very useful. I'm having my virtual assistant edit it for everybody. So
Awesome.
we'll figure out where to put it on your website, and
Yeah,
they can go.
there's this website called onerentalatatime.com where you are a millionaire returning guest. We will put it right on that page.
Yeah, there we go. So we're going to give you some resources to find deals, but now we're getting into like the meat and potatoes. So I like to make things very simple. So what I would do is once you identify a business that sounds good, it if you're getting seller financing, if the seller's interested in financing it, that's going to be vetted out through the conversations that you have. I wouldn't talk financials the first moment you're with them. I might make that the second conversation. I would get more information on how the business runs, how many hours they're working at the business. Do they have any staff? What does that look like? Are you buying just the business and the machines? Or are you buying the building? What does that look like? A lot of times they own the building it's in. So once you identify that now you have basically a framework. Then you're going to get into what the seller is looking for, and you're always leaving the door open for them to finance a portion of it. And most of the time they're willing to at least carry back 10-15% on the deal. So you
Mhm.
can get very creative because we know SBA can cover up to 90% of the costs. So then the big thing is usually they'll give you their P&Ls, and their P&Ls are not their actual tax returns. And SBA, we always need tax returns. We want balance sheets. Um, we want to know a list of the equipment that's in the laundromat. Do they have 50 machines? What does that look like? And so once you have the actual tax returns, you're usually going to have to sign an NDA. Oftentimes, they're listed off market because the seller doesn't want people knowing that the business is changing hands. That's why
Exactly.
you see a lot more off market deals versus the real estate world. But once you get 3 years of tax returns and a year to date P&L, that's really what we need from the seller to really evaluate, okay, what is the cash flow? And usually what you're going to see is their P&Ls look one way with cash flow looking great, and then the tax returns. Oftentimes they're going to have top line gross revenues of X, and then they're going to have their cost of goods. And usually in the cost of goods, they're writing off personal items, their cars, all this stuff. So then we have to kind of build rapport with the seller along the way, because we're going to sometimes have to add back, hey, we're not going to be running 3 cars through this business. It's a
Right.
laundromat. We don't do any delivery. And then so once we find that out, we can paper trail it. We then can get the SBA to potentially look at doing the deal because
Okay.
we can document that the cash flow is there. So if the cash flow is not there, it doesn't mean it's not a deal. It could be a mismanaged business, and we can actually do projection-based loans. So we can say, hey,
Ooh.
only 15 of the 30 machines are working. We're going to come in and put new machines. This is what our revenue. So we do 3 years of projections, and that's part of the SBA process. So we can get really creative.
Yeah. So again, this is why you got to work with Bo Eckstein, boeckstein.biz, and we'll do it again at the end. But so there's a couple things I want to summarize what I heard you said. again, I've been doing real estate 23 years now. I think the first thing you said needs to be repeated. If you're going to be buying somebody's small business, which likely is something they've had for years, decades, and it is their baby, their child, you got to build that relationship. Don't rush it. I mean, in real estate, sometimes you could rush it because, hey, it's on the public market. They're going to leave. It's not going to matter. But this is blood, sweat, and tears. Again, probably decades, probably. So just talk about building that relationship again, because again, at least for most of you, you're going to be asking for the seller to carry back something, and they're only going to do that A if they like you, but B if they trust you. I mean, that's important.
I think if I think about relationship building, I think of Ty,
Yeah,
who's on your show.
GYLG. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
Ty, I remember when I was living in California, I bought two wholesale deals off of Ty back in the day. And the one thing I noticed is how incredible he was at building relationships with the sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take that approach. How Ty builds relationships with seller in the real estate world, we want to do the same thing. How he
Amen.
does that in the buy business world, it's the same. It's not all about business. You have to get a good read. You have to understand people, but sometimes it actually doesn't even come down to the highest price. It comes down to the person that they like the best.
Amen.
And that's once you're in with the relationship, because a lot of businesses that go on the market, only 1 out of 11 sell. So it's like a lot of these deals just never, because the seller's not ready to sell, they don't have their financials right. So if you have that
Mm-hmm.
relationship, you can usually get a lot higher closing ratio.
Yeah,
So I think
totally
the
agree.
relationship is critical. It really
Don't,
is.
yeah, don't rush it. Yeah.
It's relationships.
Yeah. So the other thing you talked about again as an accountant, I totally get the P&L, profit and loss, does not equal tax return. As you've shared with us in past videos, SBA is going to underwrite it on tax returns. So again, if you're a newer investor and you get a P&L and you see all of this money on the bottom line, realize that you really haven't seen anything yet, because there is, you got to turn that coin over and see what they've reported to the IRS. Is that true?
Yes, that's exactly true. So disregard the P&Ls. I mean, that might be the first thing you see, and that's going to say,
Yeah.
okay, let's proceed because it looks good. But
Right.
really, you're going to have to explain to the seller that you're going to be potentially getting SBA financing, and because it's not like a real pre-approval process. I know a lot of people that are used to the real estate world. They go, oh, I want a pre-approval. Well, there's certain questions I can ask to say, yes, most likely you're going to be pre-approved. You got 750 credit scores. You have very low debt. You have experience in entrepreneurship. Some basic questions, but really it comes down to the business when you're doing a business acquisition. Now, a startup's a little bit different, but a business acquisition that's been established, it's really based on the business financials that makes the deal strong. It's been in business for 30 years. It's got great cash flow. There is real estate, which is always a plus. If there's real estate in the equation, it always makes it a stronger deal because it's going to be a collateralized deal versus you're just buying goodwill. So when I do a business acquisition with just goodwill, there's no hard assets. So on an SBA 7A loan, just to be frank with everybody, if there's a collateral shortfall, they will look for rental property. So you have to be aware when you're structuring these deals that, hey, there's going to be a $500,000 collateral shortfall in this business acquisition. They might come after one or two of my rental properties to make up that collateral shortfall.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. They want to make sure the risk is protected, right? SBA. So again, then the last thing you kind of talked about is kind of I don't know, doing forensic accounting, whatever you want to call it, on the tax return, because there might be things like, I think in your example you talked about running 3 cars through the business in a laundromat when they don't deliver. It's probably not unheard of for owners of laundromats to claim cars depreciating through. And again, what I think I heard you say is once we identify that, we could quote unquote back it out because we would run it different, and that would raise the income. I think that's what you were highlighting.
Yes, yes. So it's really paper trailing and documenting these expenses that the seller has now that we're not going to have. And there's usually a significant amount because at the end of the day, most people want to pay the least amount they can in taxes, and they throw everything in their business, but they don't think about when they go to sell. So
Right.
I have a gentleman buying a laundromat actually right now, and it was the same thing. The first bank we took it to actually, They declined it because they couldn't. And then I said, okay, we got to go to my most aggressive lender. And
Yeah.
we literally spent an hour on the phone with the buyer and myself and the banker. And we said, hey, we can paper trail this, we can paper trail this. And we got him to bring it up the food chain and
Okay.
approve the deal. So
Oh, nice.
it's possible.
Yeah. So this is, again, these are things that you're going to have to do. These sales cycles, these buying cycles will be a little longer. I think in real estate, people are used to the 30 days. I haven't asked before, but I'm guessing this is not normally a 30-day thing, because you could probably take 2 or 3 weeks just forensic accounting on a tax return, I would guess.
Yeah, you got to do your due diligence. I mean, smaller loans, which is the Express SBA program, those can close in 30 days, but you got to be on top of it. These are full
Yeah.
doc loans, 3 years personal tax returns, a lot of documents. But yes, those SBA 7A Express loans can close quicker. A 7A deal can take 60, 90, or 120 days, depending
Yeah,
on.
I just want to set expectations for folks. That's all this is. Because again, and then lastly would be, I'd be remiss if we didn't kick in franchises. Obviously, you could buy a new franchise, meaning a new location, or you could buy an existing franchise. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so there's over 4,000 franchises. I was just looking at what it does to GDP every year. It's in the
Wow.
like 800 billion. It was something crazy. I didn't believe it, but that's how much huge job growth. And so when recessions happen, I'm not a econ guy like Michael, but investors move into franchising, and we're
Yeah.
seeing that right now. We're seeing that, and so it's obviously holds true. Um, but franchise business is very interesting. I got really into it about 3 years ago because I started looking at franchises to acquire, and I've looked at so many different franchises. So I was looking at ones that I would buy and start, but there's also
Yeah. Yeah.
resales as well. So there's a tremendous opportunity there. Um, it's a little bit easier than finding a off-market biz acquisition because you can go and work with a franchise broker and they can find a right fit for you. I mean, there's just so many options. Dog walking, cleaning up pet poop is a franchise business.
Oh, wow.
Senior care is very popular, right? All these where
Yeah.
people are staying at home and they need care 24/7.
Yep.
And the home service type businesses. So it's not just brick and mortar businesses. There's a lot of home-based businesses. So we're seeing a huge influx, and I think that will continue as people want to work for themselves. And a lot of these people are in real estate that are saying, hey, I can see that I don't want to do the W-2 anymore. I can
Right.
start a business. I can create legacy. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, and he was like, he's an electrical engineer, 19 years in his W-2 job, and he can't stand it anymore. So he was looking at buying a blind company that does blind installation, and it was a franchise, and it's been established for 10 years. He was okay at being the owner operator. The guy he's going to buy it from only has himself. He doesn't have employees, and so we were going through how he was evaluating it, and that he was like perfectly fine. I said, well, do you want to be an owner operator? And he said, yeah, for now it's okay. And then he can bring in salespeople. So a franchise at the end of the day is a blueprint for a business where you get marketing, you get all these things, a roadmap to success. Now, if you're starting a franchise from scratch, you're going to have a few months of, no cash flow until you get it going, depending on what the franchise is. But when you get inside a franchise, you have to look at what's called an FDD. That's a franchise disclosure document. It tells you about all the units, if there's any lawsuits, the financials. And then once you get into that, you're going to do a discovery day at the corporate office, either on Zoom or in person. You're going to meet the ownership team, management team. Then you're going to call existing franchisees in the system, and we call that validation. You're going to validate, hey, and you're going to ask specific questions. So just like a real estate agent, a franchise broker is there to kind of guide you through the process. And it's a very interesting process to watch from the inside out, from what a franchise broker does to get somebody to figure out what franchise to actually buy. It's a very interesting process, and they have a profile assessment. So that we use what's called a Zoracle profile. It was created by a lady who's been selling franchises for 30 years. And it basically shows what your strengths are, what you'd be good at. And the franchisors look at that too, because they can look at who in their system and what are their strengths, and they'll match up that way. So the franchise broker uses that tool to help people find the right franchises. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll go direct to the franchise they think they like. And I would say it's free for you to work with a franchise broker. It's well worth it because they're going to give you a big understanding of the process, and you're going to get a full education. Because if you're going from being a W-2, never owning a business in your life, to like, I own a business now, I have employees, I have payroll, I have taxes, I have bookkeeping, I have sales, I have marketing, I have, fulfillment. There's a lot to it. But at the end of the day, whether it's business acquisition or franchise ownership, the American dream is here for entrepreneurship. And like, I was watching your YouTube video you did the other day on how you started YouTube, and I sent it to my marketing guy, by the way, who I work with like twice a week, and he loved it, and he was just like, I love that story. There's, whether you want to start your own business from scratch, you want to buy an existing business, the American dream is still alive, whatever the economy is doing. So I'm pumped to be here to talk about it.
Yeah, you're going to be here every week, folks. If you haven't figured out by now, he nerds out on this stuff. So if you've had any interest thinking about actually doing, you need to reach out to Bo. How are people doing that, and where do we send them?
BoEckstein.biz. That's BeauEckstein.biz, B-I-Z. Just go to One Rent All the Time, click on that link. It takes you to my calendar. Then I know where you came from. And usually, so far, all these people I've talked to, the one rental people, I mean, they are cream of the crop. And I'm not just saying that to blow horns. You have a motivated group of followers and such a strong tribe. I love it.
Yeah, I kind of use this analogy, and we'll end on this. When you're in this YouTube world, you can talk to the people in the parking lot getting drunk at the sporting event. Not my crowd. Those are for the doomers. I talk to the people in the stands. They paid a ticket. They're interested. They want to get on the court. And that's what you're here for. You're going to take people out of the stands, get them on the court. You know things that I will never know. And I'm so lucky to have you here each week. Bo, you're the man. BoEckstein.biz, folks. Go schedule a call. Later.